Our holiday didn't start off quite as planned. The weather this November has been unbelievably wet. The wettest in decades, apparently. So yes, that was a fun drive going through the rain. But what can you do? We had both packed for it. We actually did remember to bring our raincoats, so that was a good thing. And I made Nico drive through the rain because I really hate doing it. So with all of the lockdowns we had over winter, this was finally a chance to get away and see some ocean. It's been 2 years since I have seen the sea, and thankfully there were periods of clear weather where we could actually get out onto the beach and walk in the sand. And I even paddled in the water, although this day it was really cold, so I just stayed on the side and looked at the beautiful waves. Australia is starting to open up again, but still quite a lot of the borders are closed, or you have to get a lot of permits and things, so we just stayed within our state of Victoria, and we are down along the coast, a bit past the Great Ocean Road, in the small town of Portland, and here is where we decided to stay, in the caravan park, but we got a really nice cabin. There were some pretty good deals on booking, and we upgraded to the Sea View cabin, which ended up being this whole apartment. It's got 2 bedrooms and everything, so yes, a really nice deck here with a table and chairs out there, and it was quite sheltered, which is really great. And then here's the interior. It's like a whole small apartment, so it was really impressive. And there's the sea, so they weren't lying about the view there, although we are at the top of a cliff here. And of course, with the cabin, you get your own bathroom, which is most excellent. I really hate using communal amenities, so it's much nicer to have your own toilet in the room. This was the second bedroom with 2 single beds and the master bedroom, I guess, which is where we slept, and then we kept all of our bags in the single room. So there was loads of space, and it was a right old mess by the end of the week. But this is the view looking out to this little lighthouse. How cute is that? It's just at the top of the cliff looking out to the bay. I'm not sure if this one is actually working. There is another much larger lighthouse further around. But the view from the top of the cliff was pretty lovely, even though the weather wasn't super great and there were a lot of storm clouds. But occasionally there was some blue sky, and that's looking over to the port of Portland. So it was rather marvellous. And Nick brought his drone along. He's just got it, so he had the best time getting some pretty cool footage with it. That's him walking around because we haven't figured out how not to be in the pictures. But it was pretty cool to see a much higher point of view from the drone. And then we wandered down to the port itself. There's a wharf that goes all the way out, and here is the small marina where people keep their yachts. I got distracted by the water here flowing over the green algae. I think this could be quite a nice painting, and it might be something I do in the future. But we ended up coming all the way out to that extended piece of land known as the breakwater, and it was a pretty good view down here of the whole landscape and seascape. A lot of people fish off this breakwater. And then over the other side is the port itself. That container ship left a few days later. We watched it go out of, but of course I didn't actually get any footage of it. There's also a really large aluminium smelter in Portland, which we drove by. It's not exactly the most beautiful thing in the world, and I much prefer being on the beach and looking just straight out at the ocean. From my readings, Portland is an inlet of the Indian Ocean, so I hope that's correct. But pretty much at the end of that cliff top is where the lighthouse is, and that's where our cabin is up the top. And then you can walk along down this pathway to the beach. The sea here is pretty calm, but further out where it's less protected on the coast, the waves were much bigger and it's a lot more rugged. Really beautiful though, but you can see the weather's still not great here, and boy, it was cold. And then we decided to do this really difficult hike up the side of this cliff, and it was much harder than either of us were expecting. Both of us have lost a lot of fitness during 2 years of lockdown, but the view up here was spectacular, and we had 1 day of gorgeous weather, so we took full advantage of that to get some pretty cool drone footage as well. It really is beautiful down the southern coast of Australia. And I think Nick's drone has paid for itself already. But unfortunately, the good weather did not last and it got rainy once more. So we took a ride on the tourist tram that Portland has, on these little tram rails that go around some of the town. And yeah, we had to wear masks on it because it's still technically public transport, even though we were sitting outside at the front. And it was really cold, but I had to have the best view. And we were both wearing thick coats, so that kept us mostly warm. So the tram tracks run mostly alongside the port here and go all the way up the hill past the town. It's quite a fun little ride. I mean, Melbourne is known for its trams, so this is not unusual for us, and it was quite funny to ride a tram outside of Melbourne. And would you believe it goes right past the holiday park where we are staying? We were both laughing when we rode past here, and then it reaches this terminus a bit further on. There's a 5-minute stop to admire the view, complete with digger, and then you ride the tram back. The whole trip takes about an hour, and I think the tram goes about 4 or 5 times a day. So on our week-long trip we saw plenty of wildlife, and here were some little moorhen chicks that were at one of the local park ponds, and then there were these 2 ducks with 18 ducklings. I have never seen so many ducklings all together as one family. Normally you see about 6 of them or so I don't know what these 2 were doing, but they had a gigantic family and they are so adorable. Oh my gosh, ducklings are just the cutest ever, and I spent rather a lot of time filming them. And then, as if on cue, they all started to rush forwards back to the pond, like they all have a hive mind and they all just moved off as one. It was really fascinating. But look at them go, they've seen the water, and Nick and I were both laughing watching them run across the ground. It's not often you see something like this, so I'm really glad I managed to capture it. Although, in my excitement, I forgot to actually film them getting into the water, because I somehow managed to turn the camera off at the point where they all dropped into the water. But you could see them kind of lining up before they got in, and then they all went in together. It was so cool to watch, and I'm spewing. I did not have that on my camera. No. But there they are in the water, swimming away, so that was really fun. And a baby emu! I haven't seen one of these in a very long time. There was a small fauna park and they had some emus in there with their young, so we couldn't really get much closer than that because they were behind a fence, but it was really nice to see them. And there were even some albino kangaroos, and they're very rare, so it was quite exciting to see 3 of them. But one of our reasons for coming to Portland was to see the gannet colony. Most of the time they are fenced off and you can't get in there, but every so often a volunteer comes out and lets us through the gate, so we managed to get in and see this wonderful colony of birds. There's also one in Auckland, which I've seen many times, but I only learned this year that there is one in Australia, and we managed to get to see them. They nest here for quite a lot of the year, and out on their island is where the main colony is. And then on the mainland here is kind of the offshoot of it. But I got some pretty cool photos. Here's my favourite one, I think, of all of them, and I also really love this photo too. I took so many pictures out there, it's ridiculous. And happily we also saw some koalas. This female was up in the tree by the tram, and I managed to get a pretty decent photo of her. And then right by our cabin, in one of the trees near the lighthouse, was this guy, and he was just hanging out. We found out later that there's about a dozen koalas that live around the caravan park, but this is the one that we got to see. And he was hanging out in this tree. It was twilight at this point, but the following day he was also there, and the wind had really picked up, so this poor guy is trying to eat his lunch, and the tree was just waving backwards and forwards, but it didn't seem to stop him from enjoying his eucalyptus leaves. He was so active. We spent ages there taking lots of photos of him. I mean, how gorgeous are they? This is on the side of Victoria where the bushfires were not, so there are a lot of koalas in this area still, and they're just fabulous. I love them so much. I mean, how can you resist that gorgeous face? And he was moving from tree to tree, just hanging out, clinging on with those amazing claws that they have. I took heaps of photos of him as well. Here are some of my favourites. And to top it all off, I even found some time to do some art. I sat outside on our deck and drew the lighthouse. I could see it from where I was sitting, although there was a tree in the way, so I did use a photo from my phone as well. You can see a little bug crawling all over it, so I'm definitely out enjoying the fresh air. I was using my new filming light and stand here, so it worked out really well, and I was very happy to actually use it away from home. So I painted with some Sennelier watercolours that I'd brought with me. This is a Cinereous blue, which is a really great sky blue. I did make mine a bit bluer than the actual sky, but I added in some clouds as well. Managed to get the green flowing into the sky at this point, so I had to go back and clean that up a little bit. But this was just a fairly easy sketch that I did, and I like how simplistic it was with the bright red of the lighthouse contrasting with the blue sky and the green grass around it. Here's my finished sketch. So I wanted to do another one. I really wanted to paint the gannets, so I picked my favourite photo, and I am working from a photo here because there's no way I could sit out on that windy bluff and draw anything. My art supplies would have just blown all over the cliff. And also we were only allowed a limited time out there, so I snapped as many pictures as I could, and then I could do my art in a nice quiet environment. This is a new brush I bought actually. It was half price and it's a great wash brush. So I painted the sky in with that Cinereous blue and used various other colours on my palette to paint the gannet's head and body. Mostly it's a fairly white colour, but I used shades of grey to get some definition in there. I really like how this painting turned out. It was a bit more successful than I was actually expecting it to be because I do only have limited supplies here and I was working outside, so there's always the factor of wind and things like that which dry the paint out really quickly, and so I had to work fast in order to get that blending of the paint in with the paper. I was using cotton paper here, which makes it a lot easier to do that. So this is pretty much the art I did on the trip. I also really needed to take a break from art as well. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. We had such a great holiday. It was so good to get away, and I'm feeling a lot more energized to come back and make more videos for you. We also got to see my dad, which was fantastic. And I will see you all again really soon in my next video. Take care out there. Swatch you later. Bye!